Get out! You are absolutely useless. The cardboard box hit my chest with enough force to bruise, spilling my stapler and framed photos across the gray carpet. The entire open-plan office of Vance Media went dead silent. 50 heads turned. Grant, my manager, stood over me, his face a blotchy red, veins bulging in his neck. He wasn't just firing me, he was performing for an audience. He wanted to destroy me. You're firing me? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. On what grounds? Gross incompetence. Grant roared, kicking a stray file toward my feet. You botched the Horizon pitch. You lost us the biggest client of the year. I should sue you for damages, but honestly, Charlotte? You aren't worth the legal fees. You're cheap labor. You're disposable. Now pick up your trash and get out of my building before I call security. I looked around the room. My colleagues, people I had helped with their deadlines and covered for when they were sick, looked down at their desks. No one moved. No one defended me. They were terrified of him. I knelt down, slowly gathering my pens. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I could feel the heat radiating off Grant's smug face. He thought he had crushed me. He thought he had just discarded a broke, desperate employee who would struggle to pay rent next month. I stood up, holding my box. Remember this moment, Grant, I said softly. He laughed, a cruel, barking sound. Get out. I walked to the elevator, my heels clicking on the floor. As the doors slid shut, hiding his sneering face, I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a recruiter. I didn't call my mom. I looked at the acquisition notification that had just popped up on my screen. My name is Charlotte Sterling. And that man just fired the woman who technically owns his mortgage. To understand why I let a man like Grant scream in my face, you have to understand the lie I had been living for 12 months. It started in my father's mahogany-paneled library. My father is Richard Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Global, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. I was his only child, the heiress to an empire worth billions. I'm not taking the VP role, Dad, I had told him, standing firm by the fireplace. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Charlotte, you have an MBA from Stanford. You're overqualified for entry-level work. Why do you want to start in the mailroom? Not the mailroom, I corrected. Vance Media. It's a failing subsidiary you're planning to acquire next year. I want to go in undercover. I want to know if I can actually do the job, Dad. Not because I'm a Sterling, but because I'm good. I need to know I'm not just a last name. It's a Shark Tank down there, he warned, his eyes full of worry. Middle management is brutal. They will chew you up. If you go in as Charlotte the Nobody, I can't protect you. I don't need protection, I promised. I was wrong. I had changed my last name on my resume, rented a modest apartment, and bought off-the-rack suits. I walked into Vance Media hungry to prove myself. I wanted to learn the business from the ground up. I thought hard work would be enough. I didn't account for someone like Grant. The abuse didn't start with screaming, it started with smiles. Grant was charming, the kind of boss who clapped you on the back and promised mentorship. But within 2 months, I realized he was a vampire. He fed on talent. We're a team, Charlotte, he would say, dropping a stack of files on my desk at 5 p.m. on a Friday. I need this analysis done by morning. I have a networking dinner. The networking dinner was usually drinks at a high-end club while I sat under the fluorescent office lights until 3 a.m. eating cold takeout. I built the strategy decks. I wrote the client emails. I fixed the budget errors he constantly made. Then came the meetings. I would sit in the back, exhausted, while Grant presented my work to the executives. He never mentioned my name. Not once. When the regional director praised the innovative approach of the Q3 strategy, Grant beamed. "Thank you, sir. I pulled an all-nighter on that one." I sat there, gripping my pen so hard my knuckles turned white. When I tried to speak up once, gently suggesting I present the data I had collected, Grant pulled me aside later. His charm vanished. His eyes went cold. "You're an assistant, Charlotte," he hissed. "You're here to support the talent, not pretend to be the talent. Know your place." I swallowed my pride. I told myself I was gathering data. I was learning how not to lead. But I didn't know he was doing something far worse than stealing credit. The end began 1 week before the firing. I was staying late, as usual, to fix a discrepancy in the quarterly forecast. The numbers weren't adding up. There was a recurring payment to a vendor called Apex Consulting. It was thousands of dollars a month, marked as strategic retainers. I searched the vendor database. No Apex Consulting existed. Curious, I dug deeper into the metadata. I traced the routing number on the invoices. My heart stopped. The routing number linked back to an LLC registered to a residential address. I pulled up Google Maps. It was a nice house in the suburbs. It was Grant's house. He wasn't just lazy, he was embezzling. He was siphoning client money into his own pocket to pay for his luxury car and designer suits. I sat back, stunned. I printed the screen, my hand shaking. "What are you looking at, Charlotte?" I spun around. Grant was standing right behind my chair. I hadn't heard him walk up. He looked at the printer, then at my screen. He didn't say anything immediately. He just smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a predatory look. "Just organizing the files for the audit," I lied, trying to close the window. "Right," he said, his voice flat. "The audit." He knew. In that second, he knew I had found him out. I thought he would try to bribe me. I didn't realize he would decide to destroy me first. I stood on the sidewalk outside the office building, the wind whipping my hair across my face. People pushed past me, ignoring the woman holding a box of office supplies. I felt hollowed out. The shame of the public firing burned in my chest. He had called me useless. He had made me look like a failure in front of the very people I was supposed to eventually lead. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. It was my father. "Charlotte," his voice was warm. "It's done. The ink is dry. Vance Media is officially a sterling asset as of 10 minutes ago. Are you ready to come home? We can announce the acquisition tomorrow." I looked up at the glass building. I could see the light on the 14th floor. Grant's office. He was probably laughing right now, pouring himself a drink, thinking he had solved his problem by kicking me to the curb. If we announced the acquisition tomorrow, he would just be fired. He would get a severance package. He would move on to another company and do the same thing to another young woman. "No," I said into the phone. The sadness in my chest was hardening into something colder. "No?" Dad asked. "What do you mean?" "Don't announce the CEO change yet," I said, my voice steady. "I want 1 month. I need to audit the leadership. Personally." "Charlotte, you don't work there anymore," Dad said, confused. "Exactly," I said, hailing a taxi. "I'm not coming back as Charlotte the employee. I'm coming back as the nightmare he never saw coming." The next morning, Grant was walking on air. I knew this because I still had access to the building's internal security feed, a little loophole he forgot to close with IT. I sat in my penthouse apartment, wearing a silk robe, watching him on my laptop. He was high-fiving the sales guys. He looked relaxed, unburdened. He thought the threat was gone. Then, at 9:05 a.m., the email landed. I sent it from the official Sterling Global Secure server. The subject line read, Immediate Compliance Audit and Leadership Review. I watched on the camera as Grant's phone pinged. He picked it up, took a sip of coffee, and read it. He froze. The coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. The email was short and brutal. It stated that Sterling Global had acquired a controlling interest and that an external transition director named CS would be reviewing all accounts. It demanded full cooperation. Grant typed a reply instantly. I saw it pop up in my inbox. Dear Director, we are thrilled to welcome Sterling Global. My team is fully prepared to assist. We run a tight ship here. Whatever you need, just ask. Grant. I took a sip of my tea. Whatever I need? I whispered to the screen. Careful what you wish for, Grant. I didn't give him time to breathe. 10 minutes later, I sent my first demand. To Grant Miller from Office of the Director Subject, Expense Reconciliation. Please provide a granular breakdown of all vendor payments for the last 24 months. I specifically require invoices for all external consultants. Deadline, 9 a.m. tomorrow. I watched him read it. He turned pale. External consultants. He knew exactly what that meant. He knew the Apex consulting payments were buried in there. If he handed over the real files, he went to jail. If he didn't, he would be fired for non-compliance. He slammed his office door shut. On the camera, I saw him pacing. He was sweating. He grabbed his phone and called his assistant, a sweet girl named Maya. I could see him yelling at her, gesturing wildly at his computer. He was going to try to cook the books. He had less than 24 hours to erase 2 years of theft. I opened a second window on my laptop, the server logs. I could see every file he opened. I watched as he started deleting invoices. Delete. 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 Go ahead, I said, smiling grimly. Dig the hole deeper. By the next morning, Grant looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot. He had managed to delete the incriminating Apex invoices from the local drive, but he had a new problem: the budget didn't balance anymore. There was a $150,000 hole where the money used to be. He needed a scapegoat. I was sipping coffee when my phone lit up with a text from Leo, one of the few guys in the office who had been kind to me. Leo, Charlie, are you okay? You need to know, Grant is telling everyone you stole money. I felt a spike of rage. I texted back, what? Leo, he's in a meeting with HR right now. He's saying the missing budget is because of unauthorized transfers you made before you left. He's saying he fired you because he caught you stealing. I stared at the phone. It was a desperate, evil move. He was using the fact that he had already fired me to pin his crimes on me. He was going to frame me to explain the missing cash to the new owners. Okay, Grant, I whispered, my hands shaking slightly. You want to make this personal? Let's make it personal. I met Leo at a greasy diner 3 towns over that night. He looked terrified, constantly checking the door to see if anyone from the office had followed him. He made me do it, Charlie, Leo whispered, sliding a small USB drive across the sticky table. He called me into his office. He said if I didn't alter the timestamps on the logs to show your login credentials, he'd fire me. He said he'd make sure I never worked in IT again. Did you do it? I asked, looking at the drive. I had to, Leo stammered. I have a baby coming. I can't lose this job. But I made a copy of the originals before I changed them. That's what is on the drive. It proves he changed the logs. I covered his hand with mine. You're brave, Leo. Thank you. He's going to ruin you, Charlie, Leo warned. He's talking about legal action. He wants to put you in prison so you can't talk. He can try, I said, clutching the drive tight. This was the smoking gun. But I couldn't use it yet. If I revealed it now, the game would end too quickly. I needed him to commit fully to the lie. I needed him to say it under oath. 2 days later, a courier arrived at my apartment building. He handed me a thick envelope marked urgent legal. It was a cease and desist letter from Grant's lawyer, followed by a threatening notice of intent to sue for corporate theft. The letter was filled with aggressive jargon. It accused me of embezzling $150,000 and demanded immediate repayment, or they would press criminal charges. Reading it, I felt a cold chill. This wasn't a game anymore. If I were a normal person, if I were the broke girl he thought I was, this letter would have ended my life. I would be terrified. I would be begging for a settlement. I would be bankrupt paying for a defense attorney. He was counting on my fear. He was bullying me into silence. I walked to my kitchen counter, picked up the letter, and ripped it in half. Then I ripped it again. You want to play legal, Grant? I said to the empty room. My family keeps a law firm on retainer that costs more than your entire department's budget. I didn't reply to the letter. Silence terrifies a bully more than shouting. I let him think I was scared. I let him think he had one. Grant was feeling confident. He hadn't heard from me, so he assumed I was cowering in fear. Now, he focused on charming the new owners. I sent an email saying that Director CS couldn't make it to the office, but I was sending a proxy, a senior auditor named Mr. Henderson, to inspect the physical files. Mr. Henderson was actually an actor I hired from a local theater troupe. I gave him an earpiece and a script. I watched the security feed as Mr. Henderson arrived. He was an older man with a stern face and a clipboard. Grant was practically sweating trying to please him. He brought him coffee. He laughed too loud at the actor's jokes. We run a very clean operation, Grant lied, guiding him through the office. We had one bad apple recently. A girl named Charlotte. Caught her with her hand in the cookie jar. Tragic, really. I listened through the microphone in the actor's pocket. Hearing him trash my name, calling me a thief and a charity case, made my blood boil. Is that so? The actor asked, following my instructions. And she's gone now? Oh, completely, Grant smirked. I handled it personally. Good, the actor said. Sterling Global doesn't tolerate liabilities. Grant looked so proud of himself. He had no idea he was confessing his character to the enemy. That Friday, thinking he had passed the audit, Grant went out to celebrate. I knew where he was going because he bragged about it in his emails. He was going to the Sapphire Room, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. I arranged for one of my father's board members, a woman named Eleanor, to be there. She wasn't known to the public yet. Grant, drunk on expensive wine and victory, ended up at the bar next to her. He didn't know who she was. He just saw an expensive suit. Celebrate with me, Grant slurred, raising his glass. I just secured a massive promotion. The new owners love me. Is that right? Eleanor asked coolly. Oh yeah. I had to clean house first, Grant laughed, wiping his mouth. Had this little assistant. Smart, but annoying. Had to frame. Had to blame some budget issues on her to get the books right. But hey, survival of the fittest, right? He didn't say the word frame, but he slipped. He came close. Eleanor texted me immediately, he's a liability. Do you want me to terminate him tonight? I looked at the text. It was tempting. But I texted back, not yet. I want the full confession. I want him to say it when he can't take it back. Monday morning. I decided to turn up the heat. I logged into the admin portal and cut Grant's access to the financial server. When he tried to log in to finalize his monthly report, he got a big red access denied message. I watched him melt down. He smashed his mouse against the desk. "IT. Get in here." Leo ran in, looking pale. "I can't fix it, Grant. It's locked from the corporate level. The new director did it." "Why?" Grant screamed. "Why am I locked out?" He was panicking. If he couldn't access the server, he couldn't cover the tracks of the new money he was trying to move to hide the old theft. He was trapped. Desperate, he ran to the filing cabinets in the back, my old cabinets. He started ripping through the paper files, looking for anything he could use. He was looking for a physical checkbook. He needed to plant physical evidence because the digital trail was getting too messy. He found an old, blank checkbook in the back of a drawer. He looked around to make sure no one was watching. He slid it into his pocket. "Gotcha," I whispered. The next step was the most dangerous thing he had done yet. Grant wasn't satisfied with just rumors anymore. He wanted a police report. He took the blank checkbook, forged my signature on a check made out to cash, and planted it in the back of my old desk drawer, the one he had already cleared out weeks ago. Then, he called the cops. "I found evidence," he told the dispatcher. "My former employee left a checkbook she used for embezzlement. This was a felony. He was filing a false police report. He was manufacturing evidence." An hour later, there was a knock on my apartment door. 2 uniformed officers stood there. "Charlotte Sterling?" one asked. "Yes. We need you to come down to the station. There's been an accusation regarding your previous employment." I didn't resist. I grabbed my coat. "Of course, officers. I'm happy to clear this up." The interrogation room was cold and smelled of stale coffee. The detective sat across from me, looking tired. He slid a plastic evidence bag across the table. Inside was the checkbook Grant had planted. "Your boss says he found this in your desk," the detective said. "It has your signature. It's linked to an account that received stolen company funds. Do you want to explain?" I looked at the checkbook. It was a clumsy forgery. The signature was shaky. But more importantly, I looked at the bank logo on the check. Meridian Trust. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the metal table. I wasn't the scared girl Grant thought I was. "Detective," I said calmly. "Did you run the account number?" "We're doing that now," he said. "But it looks bad for you, Miss Sterling." "It's not my handwriting," I said. "And I think you'll find that account doesn't belong to a shell company. It belongs to a trust fund." "A trust fund?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes. Specifically, the Sterling Family Trust." "My family." The door to the interrogation room opened. The police captain walked in. He looked pale. He was holding a file. He whispered something urgently into the detective's ear. The detective's eyes went wide. He looked from the captain to me, then back to the captain. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," the captain hissed. "Do you know who her father is?" The detective cleared his throat and stood up quickly. The aggressive posture vanished. "Miss Sterling." There seems to be a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said, standing up. "My former boss is trying to frame me using a checkbook he forged. He didn't realize the account he tried to link it to is my personal inheritance account. He's not very smart." "We can go arrest him right now," the captain said, eager to please. "Filing a false report, forgery." "No," I said, holding up a hand. "Not yet. If you arrest him now, it's just a news story. I need him to do this in front of the board." I need it to be public. I looked the captain in the eye. Let him think he's safe for 48 more hours. Can you do that for me? The captain nodded. For the Sterling family? Absolutely. I walked out of the police station a free woman, but Grant didn't know that. As far as he knew, I was being booked. He thought he had delivered the final blow. To seal his fate, I had my father's office send out the invitations for the Sterling Acquisition Gala. It was the biggest event of the year. The email to Grant was golden. Dear Grant, you are cordially invited to the Acquisition Gala. The board has noted your leadership during this transition. Please be prepared to join the executive team on stage for the CEO announcement. Grant read it and probably screamed with joy. He went out that afternoon and bought a $3,000 tuxedo. He told everyone in the office he was being promoted to vice president. He was strutting. He thought he had crushed me and won the lottery in the same week. He had no idea the stage he was invited to was actually a chopping block. But then, everything almost fell apart. 2 days before the gala, Grant was walking past the IT room and heard Leo on the phone. Leo was crying. I can't do it, Charlie. I'm scared. Okay, I'll bring the USB drive to the gala. Grant stopped. He realized instantly that Leo was the leak. He stormed into the room, grabbed Leo by the collar, and threw him against the wall. You traitor! Grant screamed. You're working with her? He fired Leo on the spot. He confiscated his laptop. He smashed Leo's phone. Then he sent me a text from his own phone. I know about Leo. I destroyed the drive. If you show your face at the gala, I will release the police report to the press. I will ruin your family's name. Stay away. I stared at the text. He had neutralized my witness. Without Leo's testimony and the original logs, it was just my word against his. And he was threatening to drag my father's name through the mud with a scandalous theft investigation. I sat in my apartment, my hands shaking. For the first time, I felt fear. Not for myself, but for my dad. If this scandal broke, Sterling's stock would tank. Grant was playing dirty, and he was good at it. I paced the floor. I couldn't use Leo. It was too dangerous for him. And I couldn't rely on the digital logs alone, Grant had corrupted them too much. I needed undeniable proof. I needed something he couldn't spin. Then I remembered the audit. I remembered the security cameras. I remembered the camera I had installed in my own desk before I left, a tiny, battery-operated nanny cam I used to check if cleaning staff were stealing my pens. I hadn't checked it in weeks. I opened the cloud app on my phone. I scrolled back to the day of the checkbook discovery. There it was. High-definition video of Grant walking up to my empty desk, looking around, pulling the checkbook from his pocket, and sliding it into the drawer. Then acting surprised. I smiled. It was perfect. I didn't need Leo. Grant had starred in his own movie. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom of the Sterling Tower was filled with the city's elite. Champagne flowed. Men in tuxedos and women in glittering gowns mingled under the chandeliers. Grant arrived looking slick. He had his hair gelled back. He walked with a swagger, shaking hands with people he didn't know, introducing himself as the future VP of operations. He looked around for me, his eyes scanning the crowd. When he didn't see me, he relaxed. He thought his threat had worked. He thought I was at home, crying. The lights dimmed. A voice boomed over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the leadership team of Vance Media to the boardroom for the final transition review. Grant adjusted his tie. This was his moment. He walked toward the heavy oak doors of the private boardroom, ready to accept his crown. The boardroom was impressive. A long glass table sat in the center. 12 executives from Sterling Global sat in the shadows. The atmosphere wasn't celebratory, it was cold. Heavy. Grant faltered for a second, sensing the mood. But his ego pushed him forward. "Good evening," he said, flashing his winning smile. "I'm Grant Miller. An honor to be here." The executives didn't smile. They didn't speak. At the head of the table, a high-backed leather chair was turned away, facing the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the city skyline. "We have reviewed your performance, Grant," a voice came from the chair. It was distorted, echoing slightly in the large room. "Thank you," Grant said, puffing out his chest. "It's been a tough year, but I trimmed the fat. I got rid of the dead weight." "Is that what you call her?" the voice asked. "Dead weight? Charlotte?" Grant laughed nervously. "Yes. Unfortunately, she was a criminal. I caught her embezzling. It's all in the police report. I saved the company from her." "A police report," the voice mused. "That's a serious document." Suddenly, a massive screen on the wall flickered to life. Grant turned to look. It wasn't a sales chart. It was a video. It was the footage from my nanny cam. The room watched in silence as Grant, clear as day, planted the fake evidence. Grant's face went white. He stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table. "No, that's fake. That's AI. Deep fake," he shouted, his voice cracking. "She made that up. She's a witch." "The metadata is verified, Grant," the voice said. "And we have the audio from the actor you confessed to. And the logs Leo saved." "Who are you?" Grant screamed at the chair. "Show your face." The leather chair slowly swiveled around. I sat there. I wasn't wearing my cheap office suit. I was wearing a tailored black dress that cost more than Grant's car. I wore the Sterling family diamonds around my neck. My hair was slicked back, sharp and severe. I looked him dead in the eye. "Hello, Grant." He stopped breathing. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. He looked from me to the video, then back to me. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "Charlotte," he whispered. How did you get in here?" "Security." "I didn't get in, Grant," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a knife. "I built the building." I stood up. The other executives stood up with me, a sign of respect. "My name is Charlotte Sterling," I said. "And you have been stealing from my family for 2 years." I didn't scream. I didn't need to. I picked up a thick file from the table and tossed it toward him. It slid across the glass and stopped at his trembling hands. "That is a summary of your crimes," I said calmly. "Embezzlement. Fraud. Perjury. Filing a false police report. Corporate espionage." Grant looked at the file, then at me. Tears started to well up in his eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. "Charlotte, please," he stammered. I didn't know. If I knew it was you, I would have." "You would have what?" I interrupted. "Kissed my ring? Treated me with basic human decency only because I had money?" I walked around the table, stopping inches from him. He smelled of fear and expensive cologne. "You fired me because you thought I was powerless," I said. "You framed me because you thought I was poor. That is who you are, Grant. You're a bully who only kicks down. But you forgot to look up." "I can fix this," he begged, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "I'll pay it back. I'll work for free." "You're not going to work at all," I said. "The police are waiting in the lobby." You're not just fired, Grant. You're finished. I nodded to the security guards in the corner. They stepped forward, grabbing Grant by the arms. He collapsed, his legs giving out. He was sobbing now, a messy, ugly sound. Charlotte. Please. I have a mortgage. I have a reputation. You had a reputation, I corrected. Now you have a court date. They dragged him out of the boardroom. His screams echoed down the hallway until the heavy doors slammed shut, sealing the silence. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding. It wasn't just revenge. It was justice. I looked at the empty seat where he had stood. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Are you okay, Miss Sterling? Leo asked, stepping out from the shadows where he had been watching. I had rehired him that morning as the new head of IT. I smiled at him. A real smile. I'm better than okay, Leo, I said, picking up my glass of water. I'm the CEO. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. The boss didn't know I was the heiress. Now, he knows I'm the one who signed his termination. And the best part? I was just getting started.